We've talked about utopia and dystopia related to population collapse, but now let's look at the most likely scenario. Let's first imagine two towns in the year 2040. The first is a quiet, half-empty village in rural Spain. The houses are cheap, the air is clean, but the schools are closed. The hospitals are long gone, and the only jobs are an 80-minute drive away. Our second location is a hyper-dense district in a super city. Let's think of something like London or Tokyo. The streets are buzzing. Opportunities exist, but a tiny one-bedroom apartment costs $3 million. And you have to share it with two other people. These two scenarios, one a ghost town, the other a gilded cage. For decades, we've debated whether population collapse will lead to utopia or dystopia. The truth is, it will lead to both, happening at the same time throughout the world. This isn't a story about a gradual decline for everyone. It's a story of a great divergence that will split our society in two. The central story of the 21st century is the Great Divergence. This is the process by which a handful of elite super cities become magnets for all of the world's talent, capital, and innovation, while leaving vast regions behind to wither and decay. These cities become engines of immense wealth. The world's top 600 urban centers already generate over 60% of global GDP. The rest of the country becomes a sacrifice zone. As economies stagnate and shift towards automation and services, the old industrial and agricultural heartlands are becoming increasingly irrelevant. Businesses close, tax revenues plummet, and public services evaporate. Schools and doctors' offices into dust. This is how ghost towns are born. In the US, over 170 rural hospitals have closed in the last 2 decades, creating vast healthcare deserts. In Italy, there are now over 2,500 villages at risk of total abandonment. And these places have cheap housing, but no opportunities, no service, and no future. Japan, a similar situation with over 9 million homes abandoned in the rural countryside. As wealthy nations age, they will become desperate for people, but they will be picky. This will create a two-tier system of immigration. For the global elite, the engineers, scientists, and the ultra-wealthy, there will always be golden doors, gold cards, and golden tickets to come to any nation. Countries will compete to offer them genius visas and preferential treatment. We've already seen this with programs like the US EB-5 visa, which offers a green card to foreign nationals who invest at least $800,000 in the US economy. We've seen similar things recently with the gold card being offered to those willing to invest $5 million. For everyone else, there's a revolving door though. Nations will rely on massive rotating class of temporary guest workers to do the jobs that their own citizens won't, caring for the elderly, harvesting crops, and cleaning buildings. These immigrant workers will be treated as a disposable resource with limited rights and no path to citizenship. They will power the economy in many respects, but they will never be allowed to be a part of it, creating a permanent underclass that serves the needs of the aging, wealthy citizenry. So inside these superstar cities, a new class structure will emerge, driven by AI and automation. The middle of the job market, the accountants, the paralegals, the administrative roles that were once provided a stable path to the middle class, will be systematically hollowed out by AI. A report from the Federal Reserve Bank of St. Louis has shown that these middle-skilled jobs have been in a state of constant decline for over 30 years already. And the labor market will prioritize two distinct groups. At the top will be a small, wealthy, creative class of professionals who design the algorithms, build the AIs, manage the systems, and in a sense, create the culture. At the bottom will be a vast and precarious service class, performing the in-person tasks that can't be automated yet. Perhaps food delivery, ride sharing, elder care, retail, of course, until AI can take those jobs. And many of these jobs will be part of the gig economy, offering no benefits, no security, and no upward mobility. Nowhere will this great divergence be more apparent than in how we treat the elderly. For the wealthy, old age will be a high-tech luxury experience. They will live in lavish retirement communities with robotic assistants, personalized medicine, and 24/7 telehealth monitoring. The cost of these premiums already exceed $10,000 per month per person. For the majority of the population, though, old age will be a period of quiet desperation. Public pensions will likely be slashed, and state-run healthcare systems will be starved for cash and hopelessly overburdened. The burden of care will fall on families, but in a world of one-child or childless families, that support system will not exist for millions. The number of Americans aged 65 or older is projected to nearly double to 95 million by 2060, creating a social care crisis of unimaginable scale. This landscape of mass inequality and anxiety will create a volatile and toxic political environment. Mainstream politics will be defined by a battle between two losing factions. On one side, you will have the nativist nostalgia party, populist movements that promise to restore a lost golden age through anti-immigrant rhetoric and culture wars. On the other side, you will have the technocrats who will try to manage the decline through unpopular policies like raising the retirement age perhaps to 70 or 75, policies that often disproportionately hurt the poor. And trust in government will continue to freefall as it already has. Across the OECD, public trust in government has been declining for years, with the average now sitting below 45%. This creates a fertile ground for political instability as a disenfranchised population becomes increasingly willing to gamble on radical and often dangerous alternatives. This brings us to the final and most personal consequence of the Great Divergence. This hyper-competitive, high-cost world will transform the family itself. Raising a child becomes the ultimate luxury good, a status symbol that only the wealthy can truly afford. The U.S. Department of Agriculture estimates that the cost of raising a child to 18 now exceeds $310,000, a figure that is simply out of reach for a growing proportion of the population. And this is reflected in fertility rates, where those at the very top of the income spectrum have by far the most children. For the majority, the financial and cultural weight of starting a family becomes unbearable. Childlessness or a single child becomes the social norm, not just by choice, but by economic necessity. The fertility rate in many developed nations will settle at levels far below replacement, likely hovering between 0.8 and 1.2 children per woman in most developed nations. And this is the most likely future. And it's not a complete collapse into Mad Max style anarchy, nor is it a utopia. It is a world of gilded cages, urban living with little space, where you are forced to live in the most prosperous cities in human history, but trapped in a cycle of unstable work and unbearable costs, with the vast majority unable to afford a family or a home to call their own. And most importantly, many will have little to no stake in a future that they will see crumbling before their eyes. So what do you think? Will population decline lead to more rural ghost towns and urbanization, or do you see another outcome more likely to play out? Share your thoughts in the comments below. Like and subscribe. This has been Blinded by Logic. Thanks for watching.